Hello, my name is Chris Thomas. Welcome to my channel. What you were hearing in the intro there is obviously thunder and lightning, but underneath it, the groaning is what everyone is going to hear during the pole shift, and that is called earth groan. And that's just the stretching and grinding of rock undergoing wholesale movement during the pole shift, and before. It's happening now, in fact. So this video will be on safe locations for Spain, Portugal, and France. Spain and Portugal and France, and of course to some extent Germany, and of course the Netherlands and Belgium, and up through Northern Europe. They're in a stretch situation, which is why the countries are so low, flat. The difference with Spain is that many years ago, many millions of years ago, Spain was a separate entity. The Iberian Peninsula was a separate entity. And I think it was about 20 million years ago, it connected up with southern France. And that's how the Pyrenees were formed, because they were the small bit of land, continental plate that Spain was riding on was pushed very hard against Eurasia, which is southern France. And that's how the Pyrenees were formed. So that's why I think that Spain is so much more solid and higher than Western France and Northern Germany and Poland, all those countries like that. So I'll be covering all these safe locations shortly. But first I want to mention a little bit of channel business. I've been writing a book on the pole shift. I started in June, and the book has expanded considerably since I started writing. And of course, the reason for that is because the advent of the pole shift is part of a process. It's not just a single event. It's a process that Earth has to go through every approximately 3,600 plus years. So there's so much about our cultures, and even on another level away or isolated, is even the human body has been engineered by different ET groups, and has affected it. But essentially, the entire globe has geological evidence of past pole shifts, and is caused the shape of the globe, and also the size of the Pacific Ocean is so large is because of a hit by one of Nibiru's moons in prior passages. Now, this is all in my book. All these verboten subjects that are not discussed by mainstream science. They just don't want you to think beyond the NASA pattern of the simplified solar system and universe. So the book has expanded and expanded, so it's really going into some very interesting areas. So I'm covering, how I've been saying it, it's sort of like the A to Z on the pole shift. So it's a massive undertaking, certainly the most difficult things I've done. So I'm hoping the book will be out in late this year, and it'll be called Pole Shift, and I will announce it, of course, in a video. So we've got a lot to cover in this video for Spain, Portugal, and France. So, as you know, as I've said before, I'm very busy. I'm the only two hands that work on these videos, and on what I do is my left hand and my right hand. Now, I would ask if you make a comment in the video comment section. Please get back to me and acknowledge that you've received the comment. Because if somebody makes a comment there and they're vulnerable, or they have some thing that needs to be corrected in their thinking, in my opinion, I would appreciate it if you were to let me know at least that you've received the message. Because I answer all reasonable comments on my channel. Also, if I'll leave my email on the show more part just below the video. I'll leave my email for contact. Now, if you contact me either through my Facebook group, or which is Surviving the Pole Shift, or through the channel here, especially if it's by Facebook or email, and you don't hear from me, say in about 2 weeks, within 2 weeks, feel free to send me another email, because I'm busy and I've overlooked it, and I've forgotten, because I have plans to cover Northern Europe, Mediterranean, and the Southern Asia and Africa, and I want to do some more on South America, and I may be doing another overview for North America at some point. Through the whole process of doing the videos since 2015, Safe Location videos, I think the Safe Location video started sometime in 2016. Up until then, I was doing videos on my early videos on Nibiru, and I've learned a lot. And so this is why I'm rethinking some of my my videos, especially my overview on North America. So I have plans to do lots more videos, and of course the book has been taking up my time, but there's a number of things that I'm done in order to help the amount of time, to increase the amount of time I'm going to be doing videos, and so you should expect more frequent videos to come out by me. Now the other thing is, I notice, of course, that a lot of channels do live videos. Now, I've done live videos, and I've been funneling them into my Facebook group. And I find that live videos are kind of loose. They're not tight. They're not as scripted and as you can do with a pre-recorded video and do cuts and do re-edits and stuff like that. So that's why you haven't seen any live videos from me. But as I've said before, the pole shift, my pole shift date is February the 4th, 2023, and I've stopped answering emails and questions and queries about why I have that date, but it will be in the book. It will be fully explained in the book. Since we have about 3 years left, obviously I'll be wanting to do more videos on the fly to deal with ongoing issues. And so meanwhile, I would urge people not to get excited about what's going on. We know lots of earth changes are going to be happening, and they're going to be increasing. We also know that our space friends are also helping Earth and humans, have been doing it for a long time, and this help will increase, and so there'll be help available for people who are, general help will be available for people. So there's a lot of drama queens on YouTube stirring up emotions, and it's causing a lot of stress for people who rely on others to direct them in what's going on. But I can tell you that the rundown to the pole shift and the pole shift itself is very, very closely managed by the our ET groups and with their UFO technology. Now, some of that will be in my book as well. So it doesn't help to get excited. Planning is the key. And that's why I'm going to start with this next little section here on planning. It's rudimentary, but planning your safe location. Okay, this section, I'd like to talk about the general method for safe location setup. Anything above ground during the pole shift, unless it's specifically designed to withstand flying rock and hurricane winds, will be pummeled and damaged. I've been looking for images to indicate what I know is what it's going to look like. I found these two here because they do show somewhat of the damage. This is not hurricane. This is tornado damage. And so if you're staying in an RV beforehand, which is part of my suggestions, then you can expect it to look like this after the pole shift, or worse. But let's get into some basics. Now, a lot of people have to move for the pole shift. everyone or most people are working and relying on that ongoing income, on their ongoing income to support them. So that creates some friction because they have to either find a new job closer to where their safe location is, or they have to quit the job entirely and just go ahead on their savings and whatever it is and just bite the bullet, as I say, and just go to the safe location and just live there, set up there. There is sort of another way it can be done, of course, and that is this is all like logical thinking. It's nothing. There's no mystery here. But say if you're in Florida and you want to move to Idaho or Wisconsin or Minnesota, where you've got the Canadian Shield rock underneath you, something like that, or even parts of New Mexico, if you know how to live in a drier area, are good. Well, that's so if you want to make a move like that, then what I've suggested to people is that you move to a town near where your safe location property is. Now, of course, this all depends on the resources of a person. So I'm just throwing this out there to give people some ideas. So you move to a town near 20 or 30 or 40 miles from your safe location, and you rent a home or you buy a home, whatever, and you stay there from this year or 2021 to obviously the fall of 2022. And then in the fall of 2022, you pack up and you drive to your safe location, and now you're planted there. The reason for that is because you only have to travel 20 or whatever, 30 or 40 miles that you planned to your safe location, rather than having to transit over 500 or 600 miles or 700 or 1,000 miles, which is very tricky. And as the run down to the pole shift progresses, there's going to be earth changes, and there's going to be what we call earth changes. It's going to be like it's going to be earthquakes, and it's going to be down bridges, and it's going to be washed out roads. Earthquakes are going to disable roads. If you're living in California, get out this year. Get out this year, because you just need one earthquake to separate a road by a crack a couple of feet wide, and maybe it's slip slide, or it's you've got a difference in height. You're done. If you're driving a regular car, you're done. You can't get out unless you have a route around it. And there's only so many routes out of California. So there's a warning: get out of California this year. So that brings up the whole idea of that I have for routes to your safe location. So, but let's start here. So obviously you're going to go through your searching, and you're going to find yourself a safe location, which you will lease the property, rent it, or buy. Obviously, if you lease it or rent it, once the late 22 comes, there's going to be little, not much exchange in money anymore. Things are going to escalate pretty quickly in 2022. So, however does you arrange it, you get yourself to your safe location. As I noted here, some people are planning to just go and squat. Well, that's fine. That can work if you plan it well. So now, my big concern when I'm giving safe location advice to people is that sure, it's great to have the safe location, and maybe you have to transit 200 miles or even 50 miles. Even if you have to go 20 miles, you look carefully over your route to your safe location before you buy it. You should make a note to note down any bridges you have to go over, or any areas where where you're driving on the road near a lake, a bog, or a river, and you don't want the water too close on the same level. You don't want the water like water here and the road like this right next to it, because it doesn't take much to wash out a road. But you want something like this so that you require quite a massive amount of water to wash out a road that's, say, 50 feet above a river. Still can happen, but that's my point, is you've got to plan your route to make sure. Now, if you find that there's a route over a bridge, then you should have a secondary route or even a third route planned to get around any possible blockages in a road. And that also includes landslides, because they will be happening quite a bit, and so you want to watch for that. So if you're going through any bluff areas where there's a bluff, so then you have to make sure that you have an opportunity, a way of getting around that. This is all, I know it's complicated. But this is all part of the planning. So now, so you got your safe location, and now it's whether it's got a cabin on it, which would be great, or a house, but don't plan on that house surviving the pole shift. Maybe you have the money to reinforce it, but then if you do, then you'll get engineers in there and you'll do your thing on that. But it's going to be a difficult thing to prevent a house from falling down during the pole and being pummeled and broken during the pole shift. So whatever you should think of is above ground will be flattened after the pole shift. So you've got your safe location. Say you got a cabin, that's great. You can stay in the cabin or house until a week or so before the pole shift, or maybe even that would be the last week of January 2023. And so then you've got you either have a trench ready, which I'll get to that. So now you've got your safe location, and you've got something to live in meanwhile. And now I suggest possibly a prefab home. An RV is a good idea if you can do that, can live out of that for a few for a year or so, depending on the weather, a tent or an existing cabin, as I said. Now, then you should buy yourself a some kind of serious prefab home, like a yurt, like a 20-foot wide yurt. They're about $10,000, and I don't know how they come packaged, but hopefully they come packaged very well and sealed, which would be great. I would insist on that. If I wouldn't let a company deliver a yurt that was exposed, just sitting there on a bed in a truck, right? You should insist on it being securely packaged, and that's against water damage as well. So then you bury it. That way it can survive the pole shift, and you're going to make sure when you bury it that you have drainage ditches that take away the incredible rain that will fall during the pole shift to drain it away. So that means you're going to be burying your goods on a rise, not on a hollow, on a rise like that. Also, you're going to have your trench and your bunker or whatever it is you plan to ride out the 1 hour pole shift on a rise so that the water can easily flow away. Water will be your undoing if you're not careful. So now on that point, your safe location should not be at the base of a mountain where you've got a rut, a dry rut running towards your location, because it's going to fill with trees and rocks and mud, and it's going to wash you right down into the river. So make sure you're away from any possible way that the mud flow or a landslide can hit you. So you're on rises and you're protected in that way. So you've got your prefab home for the aftertime. You have it buried. Now, and you have your temporary home to live in. Now, you should also have a substantial tent, however you need of size, and you'll have that buried as well in a separate location, or however you want to protect it. Maybe you'll buy yourself get yourself a steel container, and I suggest that you mount the steel container in about half and half in the ground, again with lots of good drainage, and put your food and your tent and your equipment in there. Otherwise, I would buy 10 or 15 or 20 30 gallon or 45 gallon plastic barrels, and fill them with your food and your clothing and the things that you want to have to eat, all your food supplies. So then you're going to bury them as well, or put them in a steel container, or some other way of protecting it so it's below ground. Even if you just dig a trench and put these things in the trench and make sure the trench is drained, so at least they can get wet and water will flow over them, and that they're not going to get damaged by the rockfall during the pole shift. So now, again, you've got your survival trench dug. Now, survival trenches, I've seen designs, they're 5 feet deep or so, 6 feet deep, and they're on a rise, like I said. You don't have to be on a hill, but on a rise, just so you're not, or even if they're on only the slightest rise, or on a hillside. To make sure that there's lots of space for the water to flow through and around it. And then you're going to put a floor on the bottom of your trench, and that way the water can flow underneath the floor and flow away. And then comes the roof. Well, the roof can be made of, you can get yourself a sheet of 1/4 inch steel. That could work. You could use several layers of multiple layers of corrugated steel, the thinner stuff. You could do multiple layers, and I would screw them together and have a handle underneath. Now don't forget, this is just an hour long. You just have to hold on to the handles for an hour because you don't want it to blow away. Now I believe the Zeta Talk talks about covering it with dirt. That would be probably a good idea, a layer of dirt, and perhaps even rocks first and then dirt on top, something like that. Another idea I had is a 6 foot or 5 foot high metal culvert, not a cement culvert, but a metal culvert. So get into that and maybe set it down half and half in the water, in the ground, and make sure it's well drained. Or you're going to build yourself a bunker, so cement bunker. So that would be according to your capabilities and your engineering people on site and your finances. Zeta Talk says your food store should be at least a year and a half for everyone, including everyone. And that's the basic. But watch out for moving water. If you're in an area like Pennsylvania, I've done a lot of consulting for people in Pennsylvania, and you've got that Delaware River. The Delaware River is going to be way overflowing from the two dams that are just north of dams. I can't think of the names right now, but there's two dams. They're going to break, reservoirs, and they're going to break, and they're going to send a ton of water down that, and the water's not going to have much place to go, because the Delaware at that point has got many miles to go to get to the Atlantic, and to drain. So there's going to be a lot of water, a lot of tributaries feeding into it before after in southeastern Pennsylvania. So that means water is going to back up. So you have to, if you're in Pennsylvania, for example, you have to make sure that you are, a good 100 feet higher than the valley bottoms around you, because those valley bottoms are going to fill, especially if they're near or down landscape from the Delaware. So yeah, so moving water will be the big problem for people. So watch out for that water. Yeah. So that's the end of this portion, and we'll move into some more stuff next. Okay, let's look at safe locations for Spain. Right off the bat, the Canary Islands are out. These islands in the Mediterranean are out. I should have had a red X over here as well. You have, as far as I can tell, you've got one young volcano, Campo de Calatrava, and I apologize, I'm strictly Western Canadian speaking English person, so my pronunciation is probably very, very bad, and I apologize, but that's the facts. So you have one volcano here, and that's accurately placed there. Now this particular map you're looking at here is not a downloadable map. I'll be getting to those shortly. Now, I've got the red arrow here. That means that's the direction of the ash flow from the, now I've not missed it, this is a volcanic field. So it's not a volcano per se, but it will be blowing ash. That the field will be blowing ash. So you see the direction of the arrow. Now this direction is for the after time. Whatever winds directions you have now in Spain, this will be the direction of the ash flow in the after time. It's because Spain is rotated and is moved somewhat, and so its orientation to on Earth as far as the prevailing winds changes. So you don't want to be located down here. There's not really much down here anyways as it happens. So perhaps this area here would not be recommended here. That's quite a distance. That's probably about 300 miles. So it's not too bad. Now recently I had something come up in a certain way that there be some volcanoes happening down in here, because we have a major separation through, this is Africa here, and we've got, so this is the African plate south of here. So this is moving this way, it's rolling this way. And so you're going to have some possible volcanoes come up in this area here, volcanic action. So if that happens, then as you can see, the prevailing winds are blowing down. They're blowing to the current south west. In the aftertime, that's where it'll be blowing. So if you're positioned along in here, in this section here, the green is safe location. I'll get to that. So if you're towards the south here, watch out, because you know, winds don't always blow straight, right? So sometimes you've got circulation going on. So I wouldn't recommend here to be too close to the Mediterranean, to the Strait of Gibraltar here. So I've overlaid the what I deem to be safe areas, mountain ranges, on top of the map, to give you a sense of the limited safe location areas that Spain has. Now I know I said earlier that it is higher and stronger, and it is, than France is. But there is a major issue with Spain, Portugal, and France, and to some extent Germany and Northern Europe. But a lot of it will be focused on this area what I'm covering tonight, which I'll be getting to. And that is a massive, I don't know any other word to describe it, a massive amount of water that's going to be flowing over the Iberian Peninsula. And I'm going to get into the reasons why. And this is why I've established a 3,000 foot minimum that you need to be at for Spain to survive the pole shift, as far as seawater inundation is concerned. So this is an overview map. I'll have, as I said, I'll have some you can download shortly. All right, so moving on to, now this map is downloadable. And if you click on the, now what you'll have to, I should have neglected to tell you, I do this with all my safe location videos. This file here is a PDF, will be a PDF, a downloadable file. And here, as you can see, I put my cursor on it. You can see that when you click on it, you can download that map. So this file, this PDF, will be available in the Show More area right underneath this video. You just click on the Show More and it'll reveal all of the links that I'm going to be talking about. Now, frankly, I'm not sure if on the video you'll be able to click on this map to download it. I don't think so. So you have to download this file. Actually, you don't have to download the, yeah, you'll have to download this file in order to get to the links, or you could directly access the links in the Show More. Either way, you could be able to download this map. Now, this is a very large file, so you can try it if you've got a new phone with lots of memory. But typically, people with with an older cell phone, you're going to have a difficult time downloading this map. So do it on a computer for your friends or what have you, or for yourself. So you'll be able to zoom in and pick some areas here. Now, I see that there are some high areas here near the volcano. So this area here is not recommended then, right there. Or perhaps maybe here and here. You'll have to do your own thinking on that. Now, at the end of the video, I'll have an interesting thing that I've done for the first time, and that is called what I'm calling a set waking dream. So that'll help people with choosing the areas they're going to be considering to settle in. But meanwhile, I would say these areas right here are not recommended here. So, okay, I think I've covered everything on that. Now I want to get into why it is that Spain and France and Portugal have so little area of safe location. I think that'll be on the next frame. Okay. Again, this map is not for download. The dark blue is approximately what Western Europe will look like, this portion of Europe, in the after the pole shift and after the pole melt. So this is how much will be left. But you can't, for example, in France, you can't go here for the pole shift. You have to migrate there or go on a boat afterwards, because these areas will be overwashed. You'll see that shortly. Let me just skip ahead here. Okay. Okay. The big blue arrow indicates that there's going to be more water than you would think coming into the Bay of Biscay. It's partly because of the shape of Bay is very small reason, but the shape of Bay is like a scoop, and it's going to scoop that water. It's going to blow right over southern France, and the Mediterranean will also be blowing, will be sloshing the other way as well. So these areas you'll see are just not recommended at all. Now, this is not for safe location planning, this area. This is only to indicate the amount of water that's going to be flowing through this area here, and of course over the Iberian Peninsula of Spain. All right, so now I think the best way to describe what is going to happen here, this is sort of an illustrative frame. So you can stop the video and read this for more detail, but I want to move ahead and focus on the reason why there's so much water going to be moving in this area here. Briefly, I'll go back to that. Okay, the reason I've tried to develop this this image to give people an understanding as to why. Because you'd think, you know, like Spain is pretty high, and you'd think that would be pretty good against the pole shift waves, but it's not, and I'm going to explain why. Over here, you can see you have Spain and France over here. Now, I've turned the globe on this side because Planet X, or Nibiru, comes overhead of the Atlantic, the more or less the central Atlantic. Zeta Talk tells us it's going to be out about 15 million miles. That's extremely close. What it does is snatches the South Pole with its North Pole and gives it a jerk upwards as it passes by. And it takes, well, that's what happens. So I've calculated the rough speed of these various arcs during the hour of the pole shift. 6214 miles per hour. On the outer crust, in this from Antarctica up through the central Atlantic, that portion of the globe will be moving that fast and quickly. So it gives it a jerk. And so as you can see, naturally, as you move towards the center, so if you're going to be here, for example, say in the Strait of Hormuz, then your experience of the pole shift would be different. You'd just be rotating in place. I mean, it's still very dangerous. This is not a safe location, but but you'd be rotating slowly. So the speed increases as you get to South Africa or Spain. So the Earth gets a jerk up, and what happens is that the North Atlantic stays not necessarily in place, but pretty much in place as the globe is jerked up underneath it. So the sea bottom from Antarctica up through the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, well, actually the entire circumference of the Earth from this perspective, I hope that's understood. If you were to draw a line from Antarctica up through the central Atlantic, over through Iceland, and back down through China, and back down to Antarctica, that entire circle would be moving over 6,000 miles an hour. But it's because Spain and France and Portugal are so close to the action. That's why it's so much more water will be thrust over the Iberian Peninsula and France, because the landform of Spain and France is being driven in a manner of speaking under the Atlantic Ocean, and that's why it's so dangerous for these areas. Now, I made up this map to try to explain why it's even worse than I'm describing here. Again, all you have to be is over 3,000 feet at the safe locations and you're fine. But I want to explain a few things. Now, during the pole shift, the Atlantic expands by about, I've guesstimated, about 2,000 miles. And I think that's a very conservative guess. I think it may be more. And the Pacific shortens by 2,500 miles. Again, another guess, but it's close enough. So what happens when you have an ocean and the ocean bottom splits open in an hour up to 2,000 miles? Now, I suspect the split may be broader down here and narrower up here. It's because of the curvature of Earth. It's just, at any rate, it's going to cause the water at the poles, which will have accumulated there because, why? Because Earth will have come to a standstill in the 6 days prior to the pole shift. So what happens to the water at the equator, no longer held in place by centrifugal force, it will drain during those 6 days and even out more or less around the globe. So which means that the poles will have more, and the pole locations will have much more water than they normally do, because during normal rotation it tends to build up around the equator. So you have an extra abundance of water at the pole areas prior to the pole shift because of Earth's stoppage for 6 days. Pole shift comes along, and what happens is when the crust is pulled up, as I showed you earlier, when that pull-up was happening, then it's separating essentially the outer crust of the Earth from the majority of the inner parts of Earth. In between, you have this slippery, soft magma. So what's going on then is all the structures, the continental structures that we underneath I'm speaking extremely roughly here, but all the structures that have been connecting the under portions of the continental, the outer crust, is not as smooth. So the structures have been holding it together for 3,600 years. So when this jerk takes place, it separates, as I've said, the outer crust from the inner core. So what happens then is that frees up the continents from the structures underneath them that have kept them in place for 3,600 years. So now they're slippery. So now what happens is that the other forces come into play, which is the tendency for the Pacific to shorten and the tendency for the Atlantic to widen at the same time. That's why the Atlantic splits, is because of the release of the structures underneath the continents from the inner core. So when that happens, a lot of water has to come in to replace that hole, that split. So not only do you have Earth, you have Spain and France area, and well, of course, the same would be said for Western Africa, being driven under a standstill North Atlantic. You also have the water coming from the poles to fill the gap of the split Atlantic. That's why the Spain safe locations are so small. And actually, I consider these to be a lot more than I expected. So if you're in Spain, you have options, and they're here, and you click on the map and you make your choices. Here in this particular, I found this somewhere, and it shows, I think this was in 2010, and it's from NASA, and it shows the population, and you can obviously see why so many people die during the pole shift. It's because you can see all the lights on the coast. So that's like, I mean, that's 90% right there. The population will be wiped out. I don't think there'll be much migration. That is to say, I will say it again, I don't think there'll be many survivor migrants as you might think in Spain, now that I think about it, because many of them will just be done by the pole shift wash. Obviously there will be lots, but I suspect a few less than in other areas. For example, continental Europe or continental North America. So let's move on to Portugal. Portugal has so little safe locations that I'm only covering northern Portugal, because there's no place in southern Portugal that is, in my opinion, safe. I've drawn a red zone here because it's just so close to the Atlantic Ocean. So I wouldn't settle in these areas. This map is downloadable. As I said, it will be under the Show More area, just under the video. I've included some of Spain nearby, because during the last few months of the pole shift, I don't know what the border arrangements are between Portugal and Spain, but I'm sure movement from Portugal to Spain won't be that difficult, but you'll have to plan your movements accordingly if you're living in Portugal. So as you can see, there's probably 5% or less, maybe even 2% of Portugal is survivable for the pole shift. It's that simple. It's just a very exposed country. So moving on, we're going to get into France shortly. But first, I want to play a little video for people in France to give them an idea as to the dangers of assuming that if your distance is a long ways from the coast that you're safe, and you're not. Okay, so I set up this little mini video of a progression by 100 feet in sea elevation through to, I think, 2,000 feet. And so we'll just play that. Starts at 100. So you'll see as it progresses how flat and how fast water will reach Paris and the major cities. So that's right here is roughly what the France will look like in the aftertime. It's certainly more encouraging, but it means that you have to be you'll have to migrate after the pole shift to these areas. Okay. So we're not safe yet. So as you can see, at 1,300 feet, the well, from the coast to eastern France, the progression is quite even. That means the water is going to probably move very consistently fast, faster than you would otherwise think, because of the low, consistently low. Obviously, the speed of the water will slow as it gets to, this is during the pole shift, will slow as you get close to the Alps. And as far as so at 1,800 feet, we're starting to get to areas that will be not safe, but safer. I don't believe there's probably any good way to say this, but there's no, I guess there really is no safer areas. There's only safe areas. Because, why do I say that? Because the volume of water, as I said earlier, is so great. I don't have the tools to guesstimate as to finer areas, finer discrimination of what is safe and not safe. So I was given 3,000 feet as, now this video will stop at 2,000. But I was given actually 2,500 feet for France, but not for southern France, not down here, because of the Bay of Biscay and the Mediterranean. The water will be flowing back and forth here, and they'll meet in the middle, and they'll push up towards these areas in here. So there's a volcano here anyway, so we'll get to that in a sec. So this is just to give you an idea as to the evenness and the low. If you're living in France, you know this already. So I've never been there, so it's too bad I didn't get to see it. But anyways, the water's going to come pretty fast. So again, here we have maps that are downloadable. If you go to the show more, you'll see the links there. Now this is for, let me just jump ahead here. South Central, Southeastern, and Northeastern. Yeah. Okay. Right. This is France. Right. Yeah. Okay. I see that I have the file name wrong. As you can see, it says Spain there, but it's actually France. So here we have the volcano, right here, a young volcano. So again, we are pointing the flow of the air will be along out towards Gibraltar. So that will be in the after time. The air will flow this way, more or less, and so you don't want to be situated in this area. Now this is downloadable, so you can take a good close look at that area, but not in here, or even down here. Again, this is close to that flow through from Bay of Biscay to the Mediterranean. So anyways, you're warned here. Again, this is at 2,500 feet. Now, I would encourage you to stop the video and read this information here I've written. It's carefully written, so I encourage you to do that. Here I've outlined this area in red. Again, this is because of the flow through from Bay of Biscay, from the Atlantic through to the Mediterranean. Now, the reason these areas are still safe as long as you're up 3,000 feet, a good 3,000 feet, and you've got to watch out for seawater funneling. Be careful of seawater funneling, because this area here will be under a lot of water pressure. And say, for example, you are here. If you're situated right there, you see the cursor right there? Okay, imagine yourself here. Well, the water is going to come up here, and it's going to be compressed by this valley. And it's going to drive it up further, up to here. So if you're going to situate here, or down up over here, or even here. Not so there, because you have a lot of little valleys that can push it up high. So you have to use your intuition. Now, use my my set Waking Dream, which you'll get to at the end of the video, determine where to be for the pole shift. But anyways, this area is quite dangerous. Again, okay, so this is the official downloadable map for South Central France. So you can make your choices here, bearing in mind that it is under a lot of water pressure here. Please read this information. Ouch. Stop the video and read this. Southeastern France. Again, we've got the danger area here, around this area here for the. So you don't want to be too close to those to any of those valleys. So here's a good example here. The water will push up and run up these valleys, and they'll drive a little higher up in here. So you don't want to be at the head of a valley. That's the whole thing about water funneling. Don't be here. You're better off here than here. Better off not at the head of a valley, such as these here. Where you see where I'm pointing my video and my cursor. So again, this is downloadable. Please read this information. I take a lot of time to write that up. And now we have northeastern France, probably under the least pressure of moving seawater would be northeastern France. This area here. Again, downloadable, and it's a very large map. It takes me a few days of working an hour or so a day or two to get this map assembled. It's assembled from a lot of little pieces. Please read this information. So, my set waking dream. So for years now, I've been promoting people to learn about waking dreams. And I'll say it again. Waking dreams are the best way for you to know what is good for you and what is not good for you. It's not only that, it's your connection to your oversoul. It saves you time, it saves you money. It allows you to be at peace. It's a skill that will be with you, that you will be able to use for virtually any area of your life. And the more you use it, the more ubiquitous, or the more common it becomes in your life. And what that means is you can use it as a guiding principle with higher definition in your life. It's the way forward. Otherwise, if you, a lot of us are trained to think sequentially, to think in boxes, to think in straight lines, to think only in logic. Now, a hardcore logic person, there's not a lot you can do. There's not a lot that you can. There's not much place for them to go. But if you have any flexibility in your thinking at all, then you have a chance to learn waking dreams. Now, if you're a very smart person who is university trained, mathematician, whatever you, some mental skill you use in your left brain. Remember, your left brain is about counting and division and discrimination and language, and it's about the physical dimension, the third dimension where we live now. That's what it's about. Right? Now we know the human brain has many sections in it, but essentially you've got that, and then you've got the you've got the old brain, which is the instinctive brain. But then the other half of the brain is the right half, the right brain. And people who are right-brained are artists. They're imaginary, creative people. And obviously, no one side of the brain is strictly isolated from the other. But in your life, if you've allowed yourself to be identified to a particular aspect of living, such as whatever it is if you're an accountant, typically they're pretty dry, right? And typically, and they can be very, very clean cut in their thinking. I would suggest that is an example of a person who is fully identified with the way they've made their living. But if you have an accountant that is also an artist, well, he's allowing the right brain to work with the right brain as well. Regardless of how you're identified, waking dreams will give you what you need to do, what you need to know on the fly. And there are different types of waking dreams. I'll give you a few types. There is the yes-no waking dream, where you say, I want to see or hear something or some word, or to see something, or even to see some word, whatever it is that you want for a yes to a question, and you want to see this other thing as for a no against the same question. So that's a yes-no type waking dream. Other types of waking dreams are on-the-fly waking dreams, which a person who's used to watching the birds and they're used to maybe they have a background where the indigenous background where the people live close to the land. They have these skills. They have different words for them, but I would call it waking dreams. Other people, indigenous people may call it. I don't know what they call it right now, but so now you've got the on-the-fly waking dream, which I use a lot. But the easiest ones are the ones where you ask a question. You can give it a yes or no, or you can just ask for a waking dream to tell you something you need to know. Now there are other types of waking dreams. Within the waking dream experience, you can have sound and sight. And whatever it is in your environment will include what you see and what you hear. So that's the way the waking dream usually uses to inform the person who wants to have the answer. No, I have had smell myself be a way for Oversoul to tell me something. So the more you work with the waking dream, the better you'll get at it, at getting the message. Now, what I found is that a lot of people seem to have a difficulty in actually seeing the waking dream. Now, I keep saying waking dream. Let me just stop for a minute here. Because people write to me and they say, I had a dream the other night, and, you know, and it was a great waking dream. Okay. There are sleep dreams, and there are waking dreams. Even though it's the same dream process, they are two distinctly different experiences. In a sleep dream, you close your eyes, you go to bed, you go to you go to sleep. You have your dream in the dream body, and then, because it's not in your physical body, is it? Because it's asleep, isn't it? It's in a dream body. It's in another body inside your physical body. You have your dream, and depending on the amount of consciousness you have and the age of your soul, you may experience the dream real time at night. But most people, what they do, they have the dream, and they wake up in the morning and say, and then remember the dream. Okay, there's various levels of consciousness that can happen, that we can be in during the dream process. But a sleep dream is when you go to sleep, you have a dream experience, and then you wake up afterwards and you remember the dream right away. Typically, the dream will fade in memory as you wake up. That's a sleep dream. A waking dream is when you're fully awake, you're working at your job, you're driving your car, you're talking to somebody, you're eating your food, you're fully awake. Now, there are many other methods by which we receive spiritual information, which is what's just happening. You're getting information that you need to know that's helpful for you from spirit, from your oversoul. So, those other methods are other skills that we have accumulated over many lifetimes. Some are visions, called visions, and I've had people write to me and tell me of these visions. And it's not actually it's a wonderful experience, but it's not a waking dream. I'll give you an example. Somebody wrote to me a few years ago about they were traveling from, I believe it was Cincinnati, to somewhere at another town that was a couple hundred miles away. And they're driving along, and suddenly they looked out at the landscape, and it was covered with water everywhere. And they're driving the car, and they had this vision of the whole area being covered with water. Now, I would call that a soul travel experience. Other people call it a vision. Okay, so that's one type of vision. Now, that would be, one could say, a pole shift vision, because it's warning that person that that area near Cincinnati is going to be very wet and very, 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 very flooded, and not much dry land. Another method is clairvoyancy. Now, I have another person who's I connect with once in a while, who's in central England, And she had the experience where she was, now this is real-time awareness, not in her physical body. And she was standing on a hill. I can tell you it's somewhere in the South Pennines in England, in the UK. And she looked north, and she saw, all she could see was sea, the ocean. Now, if you know the UK at all, you know that there's no way, if you're standing in the South Pennines looking north, you're going to see the sea. That's because the UK is going to split. Now, she had this vision, and so that is a soul travel experience, in my opinion. But she had it while she was, if I'm not mistaken, well, I'm not certain, but there are this type of vision where you are actually out of your body, and your consciousness is not in the body. You're not aware of your body, your physical body. You're out of your body. And I believe that's what it was. And she saw, and because she was standing on a hill looking north, seeing the ocean. So that was a confirmation, of course, that the UK will split north and south from the Mersey to the Humber during the pole shift. So that's a different. It's a wonderful thing, but it's not a waking dream. A waking dream is something you see in your environment, or you hear in your environment. I live by them. I can give many examples, but it'll be something you're thinking about or you're concerned about, typically. And what will happen is that while you're thinking about it, your attention will be drawn to something. And that attention, that object you look at, whether it be a stop sign or an object or the color of something, will stand out. It'll like hit you in the face gently. And that is a waking dream. Now, it's not like you intentionally look at something and notice it. It's a way that your attention is drawn to something involuntarily. So you just look over and you see something, and your attention, you focus right on something, some item. The other way it happens is through sound. So if you are in a conversation with somebody, and we're not always present, and sometimes we're concerned about our personal issues. A word or two or phrase will pop out of the conversation in a way that's noticeable. So imagine your experience being your current life experience in the now being a smooth fabric, be it a sight, a sound, or something you're doing or thinking. It's all a smooth experience. And the way the waking dream works is that the sound, the word, the color, the object will poke up out of the fabric of your day. You'll stick up like that. You'll notice it. You'll stick up, and you'll be involuntary. You'll look at it, and you'll see it sticking up. And for some reason, you hear somebody say something, and it's out of the fabric. That's the way it works. And as you work with that, you get better with it. And after a while, you can start to develop a dialogue with your waking dream. Now, so over the years I've noticed that some people just have a difficult time seeing the waking dreams on the fly. It's just the way they're programmed. So the other day I was thinking I'd like to reintroduce waking dreams again in this video. And I'm thinking, what would be one way to help people with waking dreams? Because it's going to be so cool to have a waking dream experience to direct you in your choices and in your preparing for the pole shift. So I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and decide what your waking dream will be. And I'm doing this from a spiritual perspective, and so this, I wrote this up, and I'm calling it a set waking dream. Then I'm going to go through this. Now, to aid in my explanation of how a waking dream manifests to you, for you, I chose the concept of a bear and its various forms. In my set waking dream, I've set down that if you see a bear, and I'll get into how, why, and when, it means good luck. Now I've decided that's going to be. So if you download this file, this text is downloadable right here. And it'll be these links will be on the show more in my video. The ODT link is the open document text. You are probably running Windows operating system, so it'll very likely open it, no problem. I couldn't upload a standard text format. My website wouldn't allow it because it's unsafe. The other format is a PDF file, which is downloadable. So both of these will be on in the show more area of the video. Getting back to the bear. Okay. You're walking along, and now this image here is meant to represent you actually seeing a live bear. Doesn't have to be bear cubs, just a live bear on the fly in the real flesh. Okay, that's what that's meant. So that's one way to get the waking dream. The other is a bear drawing on a shirt that somebody's wearing, or one that you find in your drawer that you forgot was there. Doesn't matter how you come across it. You see this, that means a bear. This means a bear, good luck. This means good luck. If you see a drawing of a bear, it means the same thing. If you see a figurine of a bear, it means the same thing. If you hear a bear growl, it means the same thing. If you hear somebody say the word bear, it means the same thing. If you see bear scat on the ground, it means the same thing. Bear, good luck. That's the way it works. Now I've decided that I've tried to use common colors and situations to be aligned, common situations where uh, it was aligned with the cultural expectations with certain things. For example, black. I knew that my brother had passed away because when I was in 2007, when I approached the hospital, I saw a man standing outside the hospital wearing a black jacket and a black hat. And I knew that moment that when I went into the hospital that he would have been passed, and it was a fact. So black means death. In this waking dream. Now, if you have a culture, an indigenous culture, that where you use signs, and so if it conflicts with this, then you'll need to decide whether or not to go with a set waking dream or go with your own indigenous. And I would suggest going with your own indigenous signs and symbols. But this is for people who just want something to hang on to, so they got this and they go over this and keep it with them, and that will be a guide for you. So black death, white is clean, red is danger, orange is warning, yellow is caution. That's all standard human Western civilization, first world lights and signs and things that the corporations use to warn people. Blue is neutral. Green is safe. So if a person is wearing a shirt color, that's what this means. If a person is wearing no shoes, it means they're going to be desperate. And if they have shoes on, it's neutral, because everyone wears shoes, right? Everyone's got some kind of shoe on. But no shoes means they're desperate. A person carrying edible food in hand, no packaging, like an open sandwich or a half-eaten apple or orange, that means that they're unclean, an unclean person. Now, if a group of people approach you in a party, that is to say, in a group, if there's an odd number, there's a threat as a group. But if there's an even number, it's non-threatening as a group. Not individuals, but as a group, it's non-threatening. Now remember, what I'm setting down here is a set waking dream. So it comes as a block of information for you. Now, if you don't identify with this, then don't use it. But for those people who want to use waking dreams, this will work. If a person is approaching you, now the reason why this is so important about people is because they're carrying diseases, they can be threatening, they can be killers, they can be criminals, right? How do you tell, right? The average person is so divorced from telling this kind of thing, they have no clue. But if their face is in darkness, it means they're telling lies to you. So if they're standing there and they're talking to you and their face is in shadow, then they're telling lies. If the face is lit up, they're speaking honestly. This is a good one here. So if you meet somebody, it's the after time, and you meet somebody, and in the initial conversation you have with them, these words, white, clean, bright, happy, grateful, good, and patient, come up. That means the person is not carrying a communicable disease. Otherwise, words use black, dirty, angry, dark, bad, resent, and now. They use these words, they pop out. If they use these words pop out of the conversation, it means the person is likely carrying a communicable disease. Now, if you hear these words, black, dirty, have a conversation with the waking dream. Oh, I heard black. I want to hear double check on that. Real time, you can do that with waking dreams. Oh, I heard dirty. I want I want to double check on that. And so you continue to listen, and these words will pop up. This is an important one because how are you going to tell if a person is carrying a communicable disease, save taking a blood sample? Because if you're considering associating with this person somehow, you really want to know whether they're carrying a communicable disease or not. Because as we know, in the after time, there are no hospitals. I added this at the last minute. Is a person good to join your group? You have a safe location group. Words used. They use the phrase not fit means no, they're not good. If they use the word good fit means yes. So you'll just listen and have a conversation and just wait for that to come up. Bird song. Birds are terrific messengers for waking dreams. They're just, animals are just fantastic. So here we have bird song, raucous or melodic. Raucous is a warning, melodic all is well. Waterbirds. Now I broke waterbirds down because water problems are going to be so prevalent. I thought, well, I'd break it down. So a duck means general water problems. If you see a duck at a certain time, if you say, for example, you're looking at your safe location property, maybe setting a yurt up here, and you see a duck, well, you're going to have some water problems. If you see a goose fly over, or if you see a person with a drawing of a goose, right? Or if you see a yellow rubber ducky, doesn't matter, it's a duck. So if you see a goose, then it means your water problems will be bigger. If you see multiples of geese, it means even more water problems. And if you see a long-legged wading bird, somehow, or somebody says, what's the name of that bird? They use those in Las Vegas quite a bit. The pink flamingo. Somebody says flamingo, or maybe they're playing a guitar in flamingo style. Okay, that can mean the same thing. Okay, so you got to be on your toes. So long-legged wading bird means insurmountable water problems. In other words, don't go there. Now, if you see a fish, it means complete inundation and drowning. That's a serious. I should have put that in red lettering. If you see a fish, that means what you're considering will be your undoing by drowning. Woodland birds, small calling tweeting birds, are stable land. So you're considering a safe location, or maybe you're considering a route by foot through an area, and you're a little concerned about whether there's landslide capability or something like that. It means stable land. A crow, raven, magpie, or jackdaw, they're all from the same family. It means move to higher ground. So if you set your tent down, your camp down, and you're moving, and you're setting for the night or something, and you see a crow or raven, a magpie, or jackdaw, move to higher ground. Raptor birds, eagle, hawk, owl, and there's quite a number of them. That means your best and strong location. Now, a small land mammal can be, well, we all know what a small land mammal is. A mink, or perhaps a rat, or so. You'll know your mammals because wherever you are. That means a hidden menace or pitfall, so be aware. Now, if the animal is moving towards you, it means the threat is live and imminent. If the animal is moving away, it means there was a threat, but it's still nearby, so be cautious. So very often, in the case of animals, the subtext will be of the waking dream will be in the direction it's moving, whether towards you or away from you. A bear means good luck. Butterflies means circumstances will improve. If you're wondering about, if this is going to be better here or maybe I should move, then if you see a butterfly, the circumstances will improve. Remember, it just needs to be, it could even be a stain on a rock that looks just like a butterfly. That's the way waking dreams work. Symbols. Now, if you see a hummingbird in any way or hear the word, be on the lookout for new and good opportunities. They're coming soon. So that's my set waking dream. You can download the text file that doesn't include the pictures. I didn't think you'd need that. And that's that. So thank you so much for watching. I'll be doing more videos. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing the Mediterranean next or whether I'm going to go towards Germany and Poland. I think I may do that first. But that'll be somewhere in Europe will be my next video. And so if you're, I'll have my email, so if you have any questions. Oh, by the way, I am officially now taking donations for my safe location advice. The emphasis is on donations, so by PayPal. So it's less for an email, a little bit more for a telephone conversation. And for those people, please pay attention to this. For those people who are perhaps a single mother with children or a single father with children, they don't have much money, then please don't worry about that. Just tell me what your situation is, and I'll understand, because I want you to have, I want to be able to help you, and I don't want any money to stand in the way. So thanks again for watching this video, and I wish you good luck, bear good luck for the pole shift. This is Chris Thomas signing off for this video.